Amazing. Well, welcome everybody to another community learning session. This one is hosted by Martín Duran. It's going to be around conversion rate optimization. Martín currently leads product SEO efforts at HubSpot for Latin America and Iberia. He has more than 7 years of experience in creating and executing SEO growth strategies for startups and B2C companies. I don't know if you want to complement that, Martín, but we can take it away with that one.
Thanks, Chuco. Very glad to be here. And I have prepared some slides, so I'm going to share my screen. And let me know when you can see it. Can you see it now? Let me know because I cannot see your face. So okay. Okay. Oh, good. Excellent. All right. So yeah, in today's talk, I'll share a little bit more about how I approach conversion rate optimization more from a web acquisition standpoint. And these are all the compilation ideas and thoughts and experiments on how I approach this and how I like to call CRO as a great tool to making the most out of your traffic. I think that CRO is becoming more and more important from a web acquisition standpoint due to several reasons. The first one, I don't know if you're aware, but Google is now launching their search generative experience, which will impact a lot the traffic that sites can get from Google. Here's a snapshot of what that looks like. And basically, the fact that Google is already replying to questions here will take away a lot of traffic from sites. So that's one reason why you might be interested in learning more about CRO. And the second one is how to make more profitable your marketing channels. In my case, I use a lot of CRO to make improve my conversion rate, improve the amount of leads that I can get to the sales teams. And at the end of the day, that makes my whole channel more profitable. Little bit about me. As Chuco mentioned, I have worked with several brands, as you can see here, currently leading product SEO efforts at HubSpot for Latin America and Spain. And I like to think about CRO as this add-on for any channel you might be working on, whether it's SEO, whether it's paid advertising, whether it's referral or social media. It's always a Swiss knife that it's good to have to make the most out of your traffic and improve acquisition. So caveat here, I have not invented anything. This is based on the ideas and the work from others like Road Memo, Nudge, CXL, and other publications. So just want to make sure that basically my approach is to compile all of these ideas, test them, and then make the most out of them. So first off, I wanted to start with going back to the basics and explain a little bit more about what's a conversion from a quantitative or numeric standpoint. Basically, we have a conversion rate in which you have a number of conversions where it's people signing up for your product, signing up for your newsletter, filling a form to get more information from your sales team, making a purchase on an e-commerce site. Those are examples of actions related to conversions divided by total visitors or people that get to a page multiplied by 100. That gives you a conversion rate. And yeah, this is very simplistic point of view, but I guess most of the audience is related to that. So I also like to see conversion from a qualitative standpoint, in which the work of us as marketers or growth marketers or acquisition professionals is to help users to make a decision in which first they are in a before state where maybe they're frustrated, they're looking for a solution, they have a pain point, they're looking for something to solve that pain point, and they're looking to get to an after state, whether to be more successful, to be more happier, to achieve a certain goal and ease that pain point. And in that process of making a decision, well, there's a conversion that from a qualitative standpoint. And our job as marketers is to make that transition easier and help an user to find their solution in a successful way. The thing is that those users and we as humans, we are full of biases. So here's a brief list of all the biases that we have when we are facing to make a decision. And this is like an inherent condition of us as human beings. And something that I have learned throughout the years of running a lot of experiments and from mentors in this area is that we can indeed leverage those biases. And with those, and keeping that in mind, we can help people to make that transition, that conversion, by leveraging those biases and by targeting them with different tools within our CRO framework. And those biases may be more clear when you look on a daily basis when you have interacted with some brands. And here's an example, for instance, of an endowment effect. This is from Cafenero, which is a coffee shop brand that most of its presence, I think it's in Europe. And you can see here how they tested this stamp card, where basically you get a stamp every time you buy a coffee. And first off, they were just giving the empty stamp card. So they tested that approach versus giving customers a stamp card with some stamps already put on it. And this was related to they tested this, trying to leverage a bias that is called the endowment effect, that people show more disposition to complete something when they already see some progress. And basically, they tested this approach of an empty stamp card versus the one that was already fulfilled with 2 stamps, and they got like 82% higher completion rate. Another example of this is very famous from sneakers, in which they basically tested 2 approaches. One copy that said, buy sneakers for your freezer, and the other one, buy 18 sneakers for your freezer. And here they were trying to leverage something that it's called anchoring, in which they set a psychological trigger that it's related to a specific number. And as you can see here, setting that trigger, that anchor, helped to increase the average sales per customer. So those are more traditional examples of how these psychological aspects play in the role of making more sales or making an offer or a campaign to go more successful. But the question here is how we can take that to our web ecosystems, to our web page, and better serve our visitors and improve our digital assets by driving more conversions. So here's where the framework comes into play, where basically we take all these cognitive biases, scarcity, anchoring, social proof, loss aversion, framing, zero price. You can see that I have linked here the list, which also has like more detailed definitions. And we combine those cognitive biases with levers. And levers basically are tools that we can tweak in our website or our digital assets to target those biases. And I'll share some examples in a bit, but basically those levers are call to actions like buttons, navigation elements in our web pages, trust signals, copy messaging, creative, or even like playing with third-party logins. And I want to share first some examples from big brands that do this very well before I share more my examples. But here you can see the combination between a bias and a lever. And Amazon is very famous for doing this successfully, in which they introduce these social proof elements like stars, ratings, this label from Amazon Choice, this other micro copy that says more than 50 people bought this in the past week. And with those trust signals, basically, they're trying to lower the friction, because the user, when it comes and see this, they say, okay, other people bought this, and it worked really well for them, so I should buy it. And basically, they're combining all of these aspects to make you buy faster and basically move you from that before state into that after state, in which you'll be more happy if you buy these coffee mugs. Then an example that works really well, and this is something that I even replicated, is targeting a bias that is called the zero cost, and which is basically the tendency to choose things that are free. And here, the lever that this brand specifically uses is a CTA or a button, in which they tweak the button from the hero or the main section or the first section of the web page from a generic copy, which said get started, into a more specific one that contained the word free. So get started for free. And this gave them an uplift in 11% of conversion rate. So as you can see here, like nothing very sophisticated, just adding a couple of words, and you can see the huge like double-digit conversion rate lift can be quite significant for a brand. Then we have another example here, which is targeting the framing bias, in which they use the messaging lever or adding a micro copy here. This is from a Shopify, which they're telling you try Shopify free for 3 days, no credit card required. And they're setting that frame in which you have clear expectations and easy expectations of trying out the product without too much commitment. So by setting this, they also lower the cognitive load from the user, because the user is no longer thinking, okay, how much time is this free trial gonna last? Do I need to enter my credit card? Which are some of the main questions that users may have when they're trying out a product. So this one is well done as well from Shopify. Another example from Amazon, more specifically related to Amazon Prime. Here they're targeting loss aversion, which is basically a bias that as humans have, that we may change the way we act if we are more conscious that we're going to lose something. So if we're more conscious that we're going to lose something, we don't make a decision or we change our mind. And here they're using messaging, very simple messaging here, in which they tested this first approach, very generic. Amazon Prime offer free delivery. They were more focusing on the benefit. And here they are targeting the loss aversion, in which they're telling you, you have saved this amount of time. So are you going this amount of money, in delivery fees. Are you sure you're going to lose that by canceling your Prime account? And probably you'll take it twice because, well, depending where you're living, like this is maybe a significant amount of money that you want to keep saving throughout the whole year. I'm going to make that stop here. And I don't know if you have any questions. So I've been speaking a lot, so feel free to interrupt if you want. Oh, good. Okay. All right. So now going back to the framework that I have been using, and again, this is work in progress. This is coming up from all the examples and the ideas that I shared previously. What I like with this framework is to combine a test, assess, and iterate approach, which is most of what you see in growth marketing, and list the ideas of CRO initiatives or experiments that you can run to improve a specific business KPI, which depending on the business or the client that you have, may be demos, qualified leads, signups, even revenue, among others. And what I always like to include here, and I'll explain a little bit more later on how this looks like in a more actionable way, is that should contain the bias that you're targeting, as we saw from the previous example. It should contain the lever you're using or you're planning to use, the page URL or set of pages that you want to target with this experiment, the hypothesis, in which basically you state that by doing something, you expect to achieve something due to a specific reason. I'll share some examples from hypothesis in a bit. You can also add, to make it more strong, and this is specifically if you work as an in-house marketing professional or you're working for a client, you want to specify what's the impact in terms of the KPI that you want to bring to the table. So for instance, whenever I run an experiment, I am focusing on signups and QLs. So I want to state clearly, okay, this is the amount that on a monthly basis, if we improve by doing this experiment, we can bring to the table more leads, more signups, which can reflect later on in more revenue or more MRR for the business. Last but not least, then we have test type, which is, am I running an A/B test or a before versus after test? This depends on traffic levels, and I don't want to get into more complicated details, but if you don't have enough traffic levels, you may run into what it's called you may not achieve significant statistical significance. And statistical significance is, in a nutshell, it's telling you that your test shouldn't be the results from your test should have enough data, so they're not brought by randomness. So ideally, when you run an A/B test, you should have an amount of samples, in this case, sessions and conversions, to tell you that the data is sufficient and this wasn't just a random improvement. Or if you don't have sufficient traffic levels, you can run a more simplistic approach, which is a before and after test. I'll share an example in a bit, in which basically you had one version of the web page today, then you change it, or you change a variable and you compare versus the previous version. Not the ideal, because again, you're subject to randomness. But if that improvement sustains across several months, then you can confirm that effectively it was an improvement on your KPI. Last but not least, and again, if you want to go the extra mile, you can add a score. And the score, the idea is that it helps you to prioritize across different initiatives or ideas that you have. And what I like to use here is a nice framework, which basically it's a score that encompasses impact, confidence, and ease. And that can give you a score you can give it 1 to 10 for each. And that will give you a total score. And depending on that score, you prioritize or deprioritize the initiatives, because depending on the level of complexity, you may need to do that. If it's just changing copy, you're probably you don't need a developer involved in this. But there are other more sophisticated tests which involve web design or something along those lines, where the ease might be lower. So you might need to include a score to rank your initiatives. So here's some of the wins that I have had so far by implementing this framework in the last couple of years. And I explained a little bit how this ties back with biases, levers, and the framework. So in this one, this is a SaaS brand. They sell an invoicing program, an accounting program. And in this case, the blog was bringing a lot of traffic, but it wasn't converting well. So when we started analyzing the data, we identified we had an opportunity in terms of improving the banner. One, by making it more relevant and targeting the framing bias, because we identified that one of the main competitors from this invoicing program was actually Excel, Google Sheets. So people were using Google Sheets to make their invoices or keep their accounting transactions. And we wanted to show people that there's a pain point and there's an advantage on transitioning from an Excel or Sheets into a proper accounting program, especially if you're a growing business. And the second opportunity that we saw here is that on Trustpilot, which is a third-party site that compiles reviews from customers, we had really nice review ratings. So we wanted to showcase more of those ratings and target the social proof bias. The social proof bias is basically what I show you in the Amazon example, that when you see that people are rating well a product or a service, then you are consciously more motivated towards taking an action and buying it, or you see it with more favorable eyes, so to speak. And the lever that we use here was creative, basically redoing and testing a new banner. The hypothesis, going back to the framework, here you can see clearly by making a more relevant blog banner and adding a social proof, we expect to increase the sign-up conversion rate. CVR stands for conversion rate, due to better trust signals, and I will add here due to targeting better the pain points from the user. And we had a winner. Like this banner gave us an uplift of 20%, around 20% in conversion rate, which translated in an improvement in signups and users for the brand. Until there are any questions? All clear? Then this one is more recent that we run at HubSpot. We were trying to find ways to improve the conversion rate from our web site builder. So basically a feature that allows you to build web pages and a website, and it's free. And here what we detected is that most of the traffic that we were getting to this page were people looking for how to create your website, like crear tu sitio web, how to create a web page, how to create a free website, stuff like that you can see in your Google Search Console. And we had a generic call to action. It had the word free, which is good, but we wanted to take it to test if we make it more relevant to the intention that the user showed in Google when making their first search in Google. Let's see if keeping that confirmation by targeting that confirmation bias in which people like already starting to create a web page or a website, and we show them again that initial intention here in the bottom. Let's see if we can increase conversions. And the lever we were using was the CTA clearly on the bottom here. And we had a winner. It helped us increase the conversion rate by more than 30%, just by making that quick tweak. And later on, the paid ads replicated this experiment because they were doing search ads in Google, and it worked really well for them as well. So this one was a low-hanging fruit, but again, based on data and some user information that we analyzed. This one was related to framing and simplification. And back when I joined HubSpot, I started auditing the pages that we had. And I went into Google Analytics and I started analyzing the devices that people were using to go to our pages. And the most common resolution was this one, 1,366 by 768 pixels. So most of the sessions we were getting there. But as you can notice here, the button wasn't appearing, like this is called like the first fold. So when you land on the page, the button wasn't appearing clearly. So what we did here was to reduce the height of that specific block in the web page. And our hypothesis was that by doing that, we would simplify and reduce the cognitive load from the user. We'll frame it better, and that will give more visibility to the main call to action. And that helped us better to improve, again, the conversion rate. Very simple things that might be obvious and that you seeing like your web pages all day, you don't detect. But if you stop and actually like talk to users or watch what they're doing on your web page, you can easily identify opportunities like this one. Then another one, which we recently launched, this one is related to anchoring, in which we decided to test a new creative for this feature is the meeting scheduler, basically a feature that allows you to share your calendar and schedule a meeting. So here we wanted to improve and showcase better the functionality of the product, and also show that it integrates with Gmail, with Outlook, and it has some advantages with tools that you're already using. And what we did here was to add this, what it's called SVG, which is like a mini animation, which explain how the product works in a nutshell, and how you can, basically use your calendar and share it. And by doing that change in the creative, we were able to improve again the conversion rate and work really well. So definitely, if there's an opportunity where you can showcase your product in a better way, so it reduces the cognitive load and sets an anchor on the user's mind that, hey, you can use this feature, and in a small amount of time you can basically achieve what you're looking for, then I think those type of experiments can work really well as well to improve the conversion rate. This one, very simplistic one, again, on our CRM page, which is one of our top performing pages. We targeted the zero cost bias, going back to one of the previous examples in which they added the word free. We wanted to make it more specific, and here add that a credit card is not required, no se requiere tarjeta de crédito. And the main reason for this is that when we were adapting some of the global strategies for our region, Spanish-speaking regions, Latin and Spain, we found that one of the friction that users have from a psychological perspective is that when you say that something is free, they have this tendency to think that you will need to input a credit card, which is not the case with our product or with our onboarding flow. So by making that more explicit, we managed to increase the conversion rate, which is like, you may think that's like obvious, but yeah, it worked really well. Yeah, so just give me a second, sorry. Yeah, so those are some examples. I don't know if you have any questions related to them, but yeah, some examples that have really worked well and that probably you can replicate, which are low-hanging fruits. Now, in terms of toolkit, moving on how the tools that I like to use Hotjar or Clarity, which is a tool from Microsoft, to check heat maps and recordings. These tools have free versions, in which basically you get something like this, which is called a heat map, where you can see where most of the activity from users goes. In this case, this is a click heat map, where you can see most of the clicks, where they go. And this is very important when you're testing, because if, for instance, you're testing a button, any button with a copy, or you're adding an extra button, you'll get to see if users are interacting with those elements. And that will give you an idea if the experiment is working well or not, or if you need to change the design or something like that to give more relevance to a call to action or something like that. Another one that I like a lot is this heat map, which basically tells you which percentage of the page users are scrolling. So in this case, it goes from red, which is hot, like 100% of the users, but most of the users dropping off. And when the average users get to this section, which is average fault. So why is this important? Because you want to make the most of this section, which is the section that has the more eyeballs, so to speak. So for instance, whenever I'm redesigner or creating a landing page, I try to include as much as elements I can to target the bias that we were speaking about. So for instance, here you can see in this example that they added clients from logos, and that's to target social proof. They added a Google sign up button, which is lowering cognitive friction because you can create an account with a Google button. In this case, they found relevant a video, which is something you can test. But the main goal here is that you are conscious that if you want to make the most to capitalize on the traction from this section. Now, other tools that I use, Google Analytics to check user engagement and UX metrics. Going back to this example, I was analyzing in Google Analytics the numbers of sessions or users by device screen or by device type, because sometimes for mobile, you might need to do something different versus desktop. So I think that's one of the advantages of using Google Analytics. VWO testing is to run A/B test, in which basically you can try out two different versions of your page and see which one converts better. This tool allows you to split that traffic and do those type of experiments. And I like to use Asana or a table to organize all the experiment roadmap. So what I will do is basically use like a board, a Kanban board, in which I create cards for each experiment and start documenting them. Start adding dates and the statuses to see how they're evolving, and basically keep track and documentation of all the experiments. And yeah, I think that's pretty much what I had to share today. Chuko, I don't know if you have any questions or that we want to address live.
I'll leave others in case there's any questions. Otherwise, I'll go. I don't know if Paco, Ray, Papo, Joaquin, Andres, you have any questions for Martín?
Yes, I may have just one little detail. Is how in terms of time frame, how long do you suggest to keep the experiments going?
I think that depends on the traffic levels that you have. So for instance, if you're testing a homepage, you may get a lot of traffic. And if you are using one of these tools like WBO testing, then the tool will tell you, okay, you have A version and B version, and let's say you are splitting the traffic 70% to the A version, and then to the variant version, we call it variant, you're sending 30% of the traffic. So the tool automatically will tell you after it has achieved statistical significance, will tell you, hey, this one is the winner, the control or the variant. And pretty much then you can stop the experiment, and whichever version is better for you, then you can keep it live. And if it's the case that you don't have enough, if it's the case that you don't have, go ahead, sorry.
No, go on, just keep going, please.
Yeah, if it's the case that you don't have like high traffic levels, in that case, what has worked well for me is at least give it like a couple of weeks or a month, and constantly be tracking it like on a weekly basis. And let's say you're tracking before versus after. And what you can do is like take the accumulation of the 12 previous weeks and compare it to the past period. And if the conversion rate is better, then I'll just keep the new version. There's another way, I didn't share it here, but there's some tools called statistical significance calculator, in which you can take the data from the before version, like the 12 weeks of traffic and signups, you put the A version, and then you'll see if that gives you statistical significance and more confirmation that the new version is performing better.
Got it. Thank you.
Martín, I have a question there. What kinds of routines do you have with the team to manage this? Because normally there's a lot of problem. I manage some experimentation programs, but there's always problem in the documentation side or in the framework for the hypothesis, and how we can kind of manage the discipline around it. What kind of routines do you have with the teams, or how do you kind of land it in a daily basis?
Yeah, that's a great question. So first off, I would recommend, or what I did in my case, or what I have done when I basically start doing this, when I start a job, is like establishing an experimentation framework, which basically can be a Google Doc in which you're defining the methodology and the levers, all that I have previously explained. And you can, and I would suggest that you kind of build like your own internal CRO team and get like a representative from like other teams where you may have dependencies. So for instance, I created like this like internal team in which there's someone from the web design, there's someone from the paid ads team, there's someone from the dev team in case it's needed, there's a copywriter. And basically what we'll do is align on the framework that everyone is agreed. And in this case, I will also suggest that you create like an experimentation board. Could be an Asana, Trello, or Airtable, and everyone is on that board, right? And basically, in terms of cadence, we'll define on a quarterly basis what type of initiatives we want to run. We'll score them. Each stakeholder will add their inputs. And once we agreed on that framework for the quarter, we'll start meeting every week to see how the progress of each experiment is evolving. And basically, yeah, I try to keep it like very agile, but on a weekly basis, be constantly checking and informing stakeholders.
The weekly is more like focus on the stakeholders or with the team members?
With the internal team members,
Yeah.
the ones that I mentioned before. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like basically, how's the experiment going? If they have like executed or things like that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what's the status? If there's a dependency, for instance, if we're launching a new experiment that we define on the quarterly framework, and we have some delays because the designs aren't ready, then address those blockers, stuff like that. And then once the quarter is over, I'll make a document basically compiling all the experiments that we run, which ones were winners, which ones were losers, the learnings, and pretty much that document will go to upper management or stakeholders to make sure that, yeah, we get like funding or more budget for more experiments in the future.
No, that's great. And only one quick question there.
Go ahead.
The goals that you manage there are output metrics or number of experiments?
I'll say it depends. Because, for instance, if we define that for a quarter, we want to increase the amount of X amount of signups as a main KPI, like depends on the main KPI, then we more or less estimate like how many experiments we'll need to run and the uplift that each experiment can bring us. So it's more based on the value and impact rather than the amount of experiments.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Super clear.
I had one actually, Martin. No,
Yeah.
Dale, Andres. Please go first.
Okay, I don't know, Martin, if you already answered this or you can answer this. Like, how would you describe the best landing page for to optimize conversions? Like a structure or average structure of a page.
Yeah. That's a great question. I think there's no one size fits all. I think there are some variables you can consider, and then from those variables, you may want to have like templates depending on several things. For instance, like if it's like high intent traffic, which may come from search ads, like people looking for at HubSpot, for instance, people looking for free CRM, free landing page, free chatbot, then the landing page that I will define will be very focused on the first two sections. I will add like the word free, which is like targeting the zero cost bias. I will add like social proof elements like the logos from clients or the stars from third-party sites like G2 Crowd, Capterra, Trustpilot. Like those ones tend to work really well. I will try to address that main pain point, which may be a combination from the search intent, but also I like to talk a lot to customers or join sales calls, because there's some verbatim or specific language that real customers may say, but platforms like SEO platforms or ad platforms don't detect that, or a special language in a country, for instance, in Colombia. So that's the first, I would say, like the first two blocks are targeting those elements or have those elements. Also, depends, like if it's a service or a product, if it's a product, I will try to showcase like the main functionality of the product and how it solves a pain point. And then the rest of the page, I think it's basically reinforcing those two first elements. So I will explain more about the pain points and the benefits of our feature and the product, which most of the time is how you can save money, or how you can win more money, how you can save more time, how you can end in a good position to get a promotion because you look well in the eyes of your boss or your manager. Or add more social proof, like testimonials from more clients, like quotes or something along those lines. And then frequently ask questions at the end. I think it doesn't hurt. I have seen like from an SEO standpoint, you sometimes think like it's just a content block, but when I have seen like recordings from users, I see they navigate a lot through FAQ sections, frequently ask questions. So I always like to include those ones as well.
Nice. Last question that is most for SEO. Should I index my landing page or not?
It depends. If I think it depends on what you see in Google and the search intent. So for instance, if you go and look for create a website, you'll see that most of the search engine results are product pages and maybe like listicles or articles. So in that case, I will index it. But if it's a page that probably is more used by the paid ads team, and it's more optimized towards conversion, fully conversion, then I would not index that one. So I will have like two types of pages depending on the channel. And if it's one that it's very focused on conversion because we're putting a lot of ads, then I wouldn't index that one because from an SEO perspective, you cannot add like internal links because it will distract users from conversion. The banner needs to be very simplistic, so you cannot like add like navigation links. So yeah, that's what has worked well for me.
Thank you.
Yeah. One quick thing about your first question. Depending on the page format, you might also consider the design, because I shared an example from a blog post in which we are getting traffic from people looking for invoicing programs, programas de facturación, and we couldn't, if people were looking in Google for blog posts or listicles, we cannot just create a landing page and try to force it to rank, because Google, basically it's looking at what users like, not what you want to push. So in that case, I try to focus more on optimizing the blog post and adding banners, adding quotes from our customers, and then a call to action within the whole blog post.
Okay, thank you.
And maybe, Martín, a double click to Andres' question, but do you mind talking a little bit about, maybe specific tactics that work specifically well for Latin America versus, for example, Iberia? I know you run that region, or the US, that are like very specific to this region, at least like ones that you've seen so far?
Yeah, sure. So the word free, definitely, like I cannot reinstate like that one. Even we tested like in Latin America and worked really well, and then they started to replicate that in the global region, because at the end it's like something universal, I guess, in most regions. But the word free, if you have a free product, or even if you're offering a demo, I have tested like in the call to action of the demo page, I have added like it's a free demo or a free consultation, because that immediately lowers the objection or the expectation that people may think, oh, I'm jumping on a demo call, but someone is going to charge me. So if your acquisition model, it's more towards premium, or you're looking for a discovery call and try to build up from there, then I think free, it's one of the most relevant. I think adding social proof elements that are realistic, it's one that works well. So I think that, especially when I used to work at an agency that our target were startups or tech companies in early stages, like you get to see this, like maybe the marketing lead from one company moves to another one, and they're trying to implement a tool, HubSpot or whatever tool. So what we run in that case was we run like a small survey, and we were telling, hey, most of the marketing, let's assume that these SaaS companies were building their marketing teams. So most of the companies were then building a marketing team. This is the tool that they implement. And it's some sort of social proof that that targets like, oh, this is what other people are doing in my niche or my industry or the tech industry, I should do it as well, like unconsciously. So that's that's another one that I would try it out, definitely.
Amazing. Yeah, I completely agree. It's all about, making it an irresistible offering and something that's like achievable, right? Completely agree. Amazing.
Yeah.
One more question that I would have, because I feel like most of us are running more like early stage projects, right? Like, what would be the toolkit you would recommend for more like early stage founders, right? And one of the things that I've used in the past as well is I think you can also leverage some metrics from competitors, right? Around maybe traffic, but conversion is always like something that's a little bit tougher to get to, right? So I don't know if there's any way to access, these kind of tactics on how maybe other competitors are doing it to start. And then just more of a generic question, but what would be your favorite stack for somebody starting off?
Yeah. Okay, good question. So for the first one, there are some benchmarks that I can share that are basically industry reports, or like you won't get like specific data about conversion. I think that's a tough one because most companies are very reluctant to share like data about signups, and it's like universal as traffic, or more like standardized as traffic. Like so I would say like for editorial content, what I have seen from several B2B brands, like e-commerce, you can find online a lot of benchmarks, but if it's like something like SaaS or services, I would say like editorial content would be something, a good conversion rate for editorial content, like blog posts, listicles, all that stuff would be between 1% and 3%. For product pages, I think should be above 10%, especially if you're doing freemium. I've seen that across brands. And the second one, yeah, like in terms of creating your website, well, there's a lot of free tools in the market. Like, but if you're going more lean, then like probably something like I have created websites using HubSpot, which has an website builder. It now has the AI content creation, which can save you a lot of time to write copy. Then it depends on the channels that you're using. So if Hotjar is for free, so you can use it, or Microsoft Clear, so you can pretty much add a snippet code in your website where you're using HubSpot, WordPress, whatever, and then you'll get like a limit in terms of amount in terms of sessions, but it should suffice. And as you can see there, like there's a lot of experiments that you can run, which are like low-hanging fruits, like tweaking the copy, tweaking creatives. So I would say like mainly you will need like the website creator, the copy, start driving traffic to it, which in most cases for an early stage company, it's gonna be paid ads, because SEO takes a lot of time if you're building it from scratch. And you can use Hotjar and Google Analytics, which are free tools to basically analyze the behavior from your users. Also, another one that is free, and I mentioned having calls with clients, jumping on calls with clients, analyzing transcriptions to understand their pain points, what the language that they use, so you can incorporate that verbatim into your landing page. That's another one that I think it's mainly free, and you can use it as well in your advantage.
Amazing, thank you.
Cool.
Any last questions? Anybody? We have 8 minutes left.
Yes, I do. Does HubSpot has like a place where I can find all the market analysis? Because I download a lot of information, but each time I have to register again. So, and each time I have to, like, whenever I receive an email to review like this marketing trend that HubSpot shares, I have to re-register and download it. But I don't know if you have some kind of web page where I can find all of them.
I can look for it and share it after. Yeah, I'll
Nice.
put your.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. I can also share like some industry benchmarks that I have found online. So you can also use them.
Nice. Yeah, the conversion rates will be really good because I had the Hootsuite engagement rates analysis that they just released, and it's really interesting. So yeah, it will be nice to have a complement on that information.
Amazing. Cool. Well, I think there's no more questions. But thanks again, Martin. This is very, very helpful information. If you can share the slides and the resources that you discussed, that would be amazing. And then one last ask that I had in terms of CRO is, if there's any content creators that you follow that you feel are like really, really good and very tactical, that would be very good to have as well.
Yeah, I will share that in the slides.
Amazing. Cool. Well, thanks everybody for joining. Have a good rest of the day.
Right. Bye, guys. Thanks.
See you.